Why does the government now know that it can pass these changes?
Good afternoon, Lorna. So today, a development and one the government was hopeful of getting within this sitting fortnight is that it will be able to pass its tax changes that it announced on budget night, because it now has the support of the Greens in the Senate. The government saying that, this is the way of Parliament in this day and age, that negotiations do need to be had in order to be able to get anything to pass Parliament. So if we take a look back in May, when the government announced its budget, two key factors were making changes to that 50% capital gains tax discount and also making changes to negative gearing so that people could only use negative gearing on newly built properties from next year. Both of those changes, the government said, would help the housing market and ensure more people could get into the housing market. The government has faced a bit of backlash on these changes. They've made further changes to the changes, Lorna, if you can keep up with the number of changes happening there, and that was mainly around the threshold for small businesses and carve-outs for them with capital gains tax discount. That threshold now, small business defined as a turnover of up to $10 million. What we've heard today is a further tweak or a change that the government is making that the Greens have asked for, and that is to prevent self-managed super funds from borrowing money to purchase a property. The government says this is a small tweak, but one that it's willing to do because it has been recommended by previous inquiries. And it's also something the Greens wanted and therefore would put their support behind this piece of legislation. We heard earlier today from the Greens, they said while this they considered a slight win, they still didn't go as far as what they wanted. But politics is all about negotiations, and sometimes you can't get everything that you want. Let's take a listen to a little bit of the reaction we've heard this morning.
We've had a good long look at Labor's proposed changes to capital gains tax arrangements, to negative gearing arrangements, and taken together, there is no doubt that they are a very small step in the right direction. And with the changes we've negotiated with Labor, they are a slightly bigger small step in the right direction. But that's all they are, a small step in the right direction, but that is worth us taking, and that is the balance of our consideration which has led us to decide to support this legislation.
Economic reform is never easy, especially tax reform, but it's worth it when you're delivering that real change that the Prime Minister has been referring to. The passage of these bills will mean a fair go for first home buyers, tax cuts for workers, and a fairer tax system as well.
The other element of this, Steph, focuses on the changes to the NDIS that the government is proposing. Are they being used as somewhat of a pawn in these political negotiations?
So this is sort of a whole other piece of legislation, and these are huge changes that the government once again included in its May budget. So what's happening here is the government wanted to change the way that the NDIS operates with passing legislation over the next sitting fortnight. That is not going to happen following negotiations with the Greens. The Greens have raised countless concerns about the proposed changes, saying that it will hurt and harm disabled people. The government argues that it needs to rein in the system, to take some people off the NDIS, for example, and put them onto a new program called Thriving Kids in order to ensure that the system is sustainable long term. So what the Greens have secured in their negotiations with the government is for a longer inquiry into the changes around the NDIS. So this is now going to be a further 8-week inquiry. The government is hopeful it can then put the legislation to Parliament and a vote can occur in August. The reason for that timing and why the government wants to pass this legislation by August is because it comes to funding and money. The government there saying that this delay will cost a couple of $100 million, but the Greens and those that are concerned around the changes argue that the focus should more be around the people than the dollar sign. So the Greens have won in terms of getting an inquiry for longer. What they would really see as a win, though, is for the government to ditch this plan. That is not going to happen from the government's point of view, so they will have to look to other groups such as the Coalition to try and pass this piece of legislation. The Health Minister, who's also responsible for the NDIS, Mark Butler, was asked if he was open to making major changes to what they've proposed around the NDIS, and this is what he said.
I'm convinced is the right package of reforms. I mean, there are some minor changes at the edges that we've already announced over the course of this morning to particularly clarify our intention and to provide reassurance to people about what is going to change and what is not going to change. But I'm utterly convinced that the package of reform that we worked on for months, frankly, here in government and through the Expenditure Review Committee led by the three colleagues with me, is the right package of changes.
Now, the government has agreed to make minor changes to the NDIS package following consultation with the Greens. That includes greater transparency on audit decision making and limit ministerial powers to impose cuts to people's budgets.